I am Jerry Garson, the Transportation Chairman of the Montgomery County Civic Federation, Inc. I'm also on the CAC for 355 South. The question posed to our residents and businesses are, can the residents and businesses in Montgomery County afford all the proposed capital costs of $2.2 billion to partially build 4 routes? The projection in the TTF report is that it will cost the residents and businesses at least $5.7 billion through 2046. These proposals will result in significant increases in real estate taxes, probably well over 7% stated in the report. We do not know what the interest rate was used for these 30-year bonds. This should be disclosed in advance of any proposal being introduced in the state legislature. The question that needs to be answered is, what are the total costs and the related benefits to the current residents? A full analysis has not been performed. For example, the plan does not appear to provide for replacement buses over the next 30 years or even recognize that the agency's budget has administrative overhead costs for which funding is required. The real question is, how many jobs and businesses will the county lose over the next 10 to 20 years if the BRT system is built? In the last 10 years, the county lost 3,325 jobs, according to DLLR. With Amazon and other online merchants taking over a significant amount of retail sales, we ask, how many retail jobs will we lose, not gain, along 355 during the next 30 years? Elimination of some of the left turns on Rockwell Pike will discourage shoppers, resulting in more congestion and pollution by forcing vehicles to loop around to reach destinations, and probably will lead to the elimination of hundreds of businesses and probable loss of well over 20,000 jobs. Traffic has actually decreased over much of Route 355 during the last 10 years per SHA. Higher taxes will help improve economic development in other areas outside of Montgomery County. The sketch provided by Rockville City government shows that there will be room for 2 vehicles to make a left turn in each light cycle, or 30 vehicles per hour on MD 355. Left turns at other intersections would be prohibited with BRT constructed along the median. This will help eliminate a large number of businesses on Maryland Route 355 between now and then, and you will actually have less traffic if you get rid of most of the businesses. Some easier and cheaper alternatives are possible. One, provide free ride on bus services, which would provide more mobility and cost less than 10% of the cost of the proposed BRT lines. The cost last year would have been $22 million. Next year would probably be $23 million. This is the amount of fare contribution made by ride-on riders. Let WMATA provide express bus services on Viers Mill Road and US 29 at no direct cost to the county, since WMATA is starting these enhanced express bus services by June of 2016. This is both more affordable and more immediate solution rather than waiting 5 to 10 years that the BRT requires. Also implement 355 Ride-on Plus transit services on MD 355 at a cost of $21 million. It'll be $17 million that is not provided by the Tiger Grant. If you get that, it's only $4 million. We do not understand where the ridership projections come from. Currently, WMATA Red Line serves 10,492 riders between Bethesda and Chevy Chase each weekday. Ride-on serves 46 serves 3,415, and the Ride-on 55 serves 7,650. We don't see where you're going to get to 60,000 riders. Maybe someone can do good arithmetic. I'm a CPA. I can't figure it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garson.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask a question.
Yes, sir.
At the June 17th task force public meeting, the county executive said that he did not and would not support a system costing $1.8 billion. The numbers you're citing exceed that amount. How certain are you of those figures?
Well, I'm certain that they're incorrect because they've been provided by PFM of $2.2 million. This incurs the I'll call it 3 or 4 BRT routes. If we separate 355 into 2 routes, it's 2 routes. Then you had US 29 and Viers Mill plus Colorado City's Transit Phase 1. This is what the consultants provided for. We know that the county is very accurate in estimating costs. We've seen that a transportation center was just completed well under budget in Silver Spring. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was over budget in an extra number of years. But they can't even get a transit center built. We actually look at the costs, and we get the project cost at $2,297,000, but they actually grow to $5.7 billion. If you look at the aggregate debt service, they don't break down principal and interest of $2,993,000,000. County pay-go, which the taxpayers have to pay, of $363 million. Their operating and maintenance expenses net of fare box of $1,989,000,000. Their capital reserve requirement of $229 million, their O&M reserve deposit requirement of $36 million, and the net additions to sinking fund of $150 million. I think these figures are understated because they seem to miss buying new buses, because most buses won't last for 30 years. Maybe these super duper buses at $1 million will last for 30 years, but I can't see how they're going to last for 30 years. They also showed no administrative costs in the first 5 years of operation, when you're going to have a board of directors, you're going to have all kinds of key people assigned, and all kinds of supervision of the current ride-on service. And none of those expenses seem to be shown in. If anything, it's probably well over $6, maybe even $7 billion that it'll actually cost us. And we see currently that Ride-On can't even maintain their current service. They've just proposed eliminating the 42, which is listed in the CAC reports as a feeder service, onto Rockville Pike. So they're eliminating the feeder services. If they use this 10 riders per trip thing, we're going to lose 22 of the 78 Ride-On buses. I don't see how this system's going to have any ridership by the time it's built.
Thank you.
Ms. Bienenfeld.
Thank you. I'm president of the Montgomery County Civic Federation, and I'm honored to represent over 150,000 residents throughout Montgomery County. All of our members live in Montgomery County, and we all vote. And I'd like to ask you, as I usually do, how many of you took public transit to get to this meeting? Thank you, Delegate Corman. Good job. Yes, it went very well today. So just for the record, the Rockville stop is very close to here, just a few blocks. And as I said, all our members live in Montgomery County. I assume everybody on the Transit Task Force lives in the county too, is that correct? No?
Of course it is.
It is?
Except for,
No.
I think Mr. Jen lives
Mr.
in
Jen
Baltimore.
lives not in Montgomery County?
We're
Oh.
not here to respond to questions. We're here to
Well,
listen to
you
your
are
testimony.
here to
Why
respond to
don't you-
questions
Why don't
because-
you deliver your testimony?
I'm happy to deliver my testimony, and I believe you could answer questions, actually. We're the
Actually-
residents, and we're paying the salaries.
Yeah, well,
This is the third time you've requested no salaries, but the salary of Mr. Leggett. We're paying for the electricity here, the computers,
again,
and so.
why don't you just give your testimony? We're trying to have a meeting at which we listen to your testimony.
Fine.
We're not here to respond to the statements that you're making. We're not going to get into a back and forth that way.
You don't
We'd
have
like
to.
you
We can
present.
go to our elected representatives, and we'll have a back and forth with them.
Good.
Bottom line, we don't want an independent transit authority, and we do not want a bus rapid transit system. We do want fiscally conservative, responsible approaches to the issues of failing traffic intersections, increasing dangers to pedestrians and bicyclists, and lack of public transit where it is needed. We, the Civic Fed, are in the process of compiling results from a questionnaire we sent to our members regarding the ITA and the BRT. So far, over 50% of our member organizations have responded. Here are the results to date. 96% of respondents' neighborhoods are within 1/2 mile of ride-on transit. 92% of respondents said they do not support creating an independent transit authority for Montgomery County. 92% do not support breaking the charter. The Civic Fed has carefully studied these issues, as you know, as led by Mr. Garson, who just testified. What we want is additional publicly funded transit. We recommend, in keeping with the 21st century technology, knowledge, and realistic population and ridership requirements, any new public transit must keep to the important principle of flexibility. That is, a diesel bus fixed route system is not acceptable in the 21st century, given changed cultural expectations and available technologies. We refer to V2V technologies, autonomous vehicles, including transit, transportation flexibility apps, and the like. This is the ecosystem, the one we're entering now. And I don't think I need to go into what we've learned about clean diesel in the last few weeks. To my fellow residents, I want to make sure you're all aware that DOT has already done a real estate evaluation of properties along the proposed routes in advance of a quick take of property to extend the roadbed to the full width of the right-of-way. In some areas, the right-of-way will be extended. I would urge you to contact DOT to find out where your property stands regarding the quick take. We've seen in my own neighborhood that there are streets and neighbors who are going to have been assessed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
Carol?
Chairman?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
The next person on the list is Carol Barth.
Good evening. I wanted to write testimony cataloging the many capital costs the task force excluded in order to keep construction costs down to $2.5 billion, the ludicrously optimistic projections of benefits which were never subjected to any independent expert analysis, and the complete lack of performance metrics for the BRT and the ITA. But why bother? I already know you don't care about any of that stuff. So let me tell you a story instead. Once upon a time, not so long ago, in a land not so far away, the people were sad because they had inefficient and unreliable transit, unmaintained roads, and antiquated traffic signals. Now, the rulers of this land had squeezed all the taxes they could from the people and borrowed as much money as they could. Where shall we find new tax revenues, they cried. We know, said some piggies, we'll build magical mixed-use palaces and jobs will become plentiful in the land. Yea, even white tablecloth restaurants will we build. But these were greedy piggies, and they said, we'll build the palaces and gain all the profit, but the people and the small businesses must pay for all the needed infrastructure. We must convince the people they have no choice. Some sleek weasels who were feasting on crumbs from the piggies' table said, we can fool the people for you. So the piggies and weasels told the people they must build a world-class, gold-standard, transformative system of giant ox carts, or there would be no new jobs or white table restaurants in all the land. And the rulers said, this seems good to us, but alas, we have maxed out our credit cards. So the piggies and weasels hatched a scheme to indenture the people for 30 years to a cabal of unelected evil wizards. Everything seemed to be going the piggies' way. But the people said, this is taxation without representation. We don't want transformative ox carts. We want to invest in the future of transportation. We want affordable, efficient, and reliable transit on repaved roads. We want real-time adaptive traffic signals and free local bus service. You can't have that, said the piggies. So the people had a piggy roast and lived happily ever after. The end.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
On that happy note, could I just ask a quick question of the panel? For those of you from the Civic Fed, I understand some of the objections you've raised about the lack of data on much of this BRT system. And actually, to Mr. Harris, too, I don't mean to exclude you. Your background as a COG planner, I'd be interested in your response to this. One part of phase one of this BRT system, as you probably know, is the Quarter Cities Transitway, CCT, which has been through about 20 years of extensive analysis and actually has been shown to be cost competitive and has had to compete against other projects around the country, actually, for cost effectiveness. When you say you don't support a BRT network, are you including the CCT in that, or are you just talking about the rest of phase one? I just want clarification.
Well, I haven't studied CCT properly. It looks like it was fairly well planned out in that. Since I live closest to 355, I do occasionally ride on 29. I've actually made it a practice in the last couple of weeks of whenever I'm going anything to actually ride on Vias Mill Road. And I see Vias Mill having a quantity of buses. The express bus service that WMATA has proposed would definitely work. On 29, they've proposed an express bus service, and this meets all the definitions of the planning board because the K9 that WMATA does is the same type of thing, and they call it BRT-commuter service in the master plan. There doesn't seem to be any alternative for CCT that's been proposed. So I haven't really studied it, but of the other three routes, it just makes no sense to me. I mean, if we're going to lose a lane of traffic on 355, it's really going to affect businesses. If your goal is to destroy businesses in Montgomery County, get rid of one lane on 355, and I guarantee you your 2-year construction plan will probably definitely be completed on time, and if it's not on time, well, we lose even more businesses. I mean, look at things that can be done fast. There doesn't seem to be any alternative proposal for CCT at the moment. If the county or the Department of Transportation comes up with an innovative thing, such as the 355 Ride-on Plus system, which would be an express bus service, they've applied for a Tiger grant. I hope they get the Tiger grant because that'll save us $17 million. And if we can't get it for $21 million without destroying Rockville Pike, I'd rather see that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I haven't studied the CCT, but I can say that at least definitively on the route that I'm discussing, the Route 29 South route, we literally have no data. Like
Right.
I wasn't kidding.
There is data for the CCT, and it's pretty
fine. But for
pretty
5 months,
well
I've been in meetings, and it seems like there is a solution, which is the BRT. We know there's a problem,
Right.
and we have a solution. What we don't have is the rationale